Am I the A for not letting my stepson, 12, live with us? I don't want anyone to interfere in my life, and the child is unnecessary in my marriage. I have 2 boys, a 10-year-old male and a 5-year-old male. I'm getting married in the next few weeks to my boyfriend, who has a 12-year-old son from a previous relationship. My future husband's son asked his dad if he could come live with us after we get married because he wants to experience a genuine family dynamic with parents and siblings, given that his biological parents never married anyone else. My husband is on board with this idea, believing it would contribute positively to the boy's personal growth. I expressed to my husband that I have reservations about having him live with us based on observations during the weekends he spends at our place. Firstly, he appears to have a strained relationship with my younger son. He rarely includes him in activities unless I specifically prompt him to do so. When I ask him to assist the younger boy, such as accompanying him to the bathroom, he does so with obvious reluctance. Secondly, he displays an excessive competitive streak towards my older son. He consistently aims to outperform him, and even taunts him when he succeeds. I find this overly competitive atmosphere uncomfortable. I desire my children to grow up in a nurturing and supportive environment. The third and most significant concern is his academic and behavioral performance. My boyfriend has informed me that his son has been struggling academically and has faced minor behavioral challenges. I am concerned about his potential negative influence on my children, particularly my older son. My husband dismisses these concerns as typical for his age, believing that with our guidance, he could improve. I sought advice from my mother, and she disagrees with me, asserting that providing a united family environment could greatly benefit my stepson. Both of them label my reasons as unreasonable. Am I the A? Edit. Many people didn't quite catch the bathroom example I provided. Let's say we're at a park. I can't let my 5-year-old go to the bathroom alone, so I might have my stepson accompany him for safety reasons. It's the kind of thing an older child should do for a younger one. Update. I know that I am not the best person, but I never mistreated or ignored my future stepson. I care for him, and I would never think of hurting him. I realized now that I was being overly protective of my own children and not considering things from my future stepson's perspective. I was afraid that my future stepson might bully my kids, for example, excluding the younger one from activities he enjoys, like building with Legos, or teasing the older one when he wins. But now, I can see that if he wants to live with us, it's because he cares about his future siblings. Moreover, as a responsible adult, I understand that I have an obligation to help him with his behavior in school and his grades. I talked to my boyfriend, and I accept that he can come live with us. Now we'll need to move to a new house so that each child can have their own room, and we will have to work on getting custody. Relevant comments via info on stepson's mom. Unfortunately, my stepson is the result of a one-night relationship, not a marriage. My fiancé said he even tried to have a dating or more serious relationship with her, but she declined. She has always had custody of the boy, and she has never been married. It's just her and the boy. I work remotely, so even though I have work obligations, I'll be the one providing more assistance to the children. I don't see it as a problem, even with one more child. He lives with his mom, who has full custody. He sought my fiancé to ask if he could live with us because he wants to have a family with siblings. I don't know his mom very well. I have only met her a few times, like on his birthday. Update. We're going to talk to him and his mom tonight. I'm going to tell him that our house is his home and he's more than welcome here. We're going to say that we are even planning to move to a new house to give him his own room, but it also depends on the conversation with his mom. My fiancé thinks we won't have any issues. OP is voted. You're the A. This sums up the majority opinion well. You're the A. You're marrying his father, so you should start considering him as your son as well. If your eldest son, 10M, started displaying all these behaviors, then surely you wouldn't just kick him out and give up on him. I would get your BF on board with ways to deal with the behaviors that you're not happy with. Update post. I initially want to thank the comments that helped me understand that I was in the wrong. I learned that I was being extremely selfish, only looking out for my own children and my fear that they might somehow face bullying at home, but I wasn't considering the feelings of my stepson. I've also learned that the dynamics between siblings, something I never experienced, inevitably involve a bit of competition and rivalry. I was so focused on myself and my kids that I couldn't see that if he wants to live with us, then obviously he cares about us, especially the idea of having siblings. So I hope we will work together to build a great dynamic in our house. I talked to my fiancé, even showed him this Reddit post, and told him that I agree our stepson should live with us, that I was wrong about my reservations concerning the boy. He talked to the mother of my stepson, who has legal custody of him. I didn't participate in the conversation, as I understand it's a moment for the biological parents. Despite being reluctant, after hearing from her own child that he wanted to live with us, she agreed to work out an arrangement where he will spend a significant amount of time with us. My fiancé and the boy's mother will still have to discuss the details. After that, my fiancé and I took my stepson out to eat his favorite burger and talked. I told him that we're happy to have him as a new member of our household, that we're going to look for a new house to better accommodate the family now that we'll be 5, and he can have his own room. He was very happy. We didn't address some concerns that I still have, like the issue of discipline and following rules. I avoided that topic so it doesn't seem like I'm threatening him to go back to living with his mom. I want him to feel accepted unconditionally in our home. But of course, we'll have that conversation about discipline with the older two soon to prevent any issues and also emphasize the importance of maintaining good grades in school. P.S. There's no need for anyone here to send me messages cursing me out. I've received dozens of offensive messages, and it doesn't help anyone. I've also received supportive messages with advice, and I appreciate those messages. The internet and this community don't need to be a place for hate. Relevant comments, you need to discuss discipline as soon as possible to be on the same page. I'm aware that this issue has always been one of the key points for me. I always believe that when a child is disciplined by a step-parent, they might perceive it as unfair, which can significantly impact the relationship between the child and the step-parent. However, we've discussed making a list of rules and the corresponding consequences for breaking each rule, so I hope that no one feels unjustly treated. If something comes up that isn't on the list, then the decision will need to be a joint one between me and my fiancé. OP's stance. I've always told my fiancé that if my stepson came to live with us, then it would be for the rest of our lives, as my stepson isn't an object that we can return for some reason. I've always had that very clear. He was always a member of the household. You're the new one. Honestly, I think the issue here is just the choice of words. When I said, member of our household, my fiancé and my stepson understood that I was referring to him becoming a new resident of the house, as he didn't live here before. Regardless of whether you agree or not, the fact is that he lived at his mother's house and, in practice, was a visitor at ours. Of course, I did everything to make him feel that our house was also his, but there's a difference between living here and spending weekends. I never meant to say that he wasn't a part of the family. I've always treated him as a family member. This is a part one haven't quite grasped yet. Many people talk as if I treat my stepson poorly. When my husband read the comments on the other post, he told me not to worry because I treat his son very well, and I think it's obvious that if I mistreated him, he wouldn't want to live with me. So where does this idea come from that I treat him poorly? I know that when I said that I didn't want him living with us, it sounds rude, but there is a huge difference between how you treat a kid and what you discuss with your fiancé. Further info on the housing situation: it's still his own house. I completely agree with this, which is why I mentioned that I did everything to make him feel like the house was his too. But there's an aspect I didn't mention, and perhaps it's another reason for my choice of words. My fiancé is moving into the house I live in with my kids, so chronologically it makes sense for me to refer to it as my house, and say that my stepson is a new member of it. Of course, from his perspective, we are the new members of his family. A child's perspective is very different and very insightful. Yes, that's true. The best I can do is treat my stepson the same way I treat my own children, and I don't believe there have been any instances where I treated him differently. In fact, I realized I was expecting behaviors from him similar to those of my older son without considering his different experiences, which made me unfair to him. Does stepson have his own room? Are you spending enough time with him? This is a very important point. I completely agree that it's crucial for children of divorced parents to understand that they have two homes and to have their personal belongings in both. The thing is, we've been gradually adapting over time. First, I got to know my stepson, then he got to know my kids, and then they started spending more time together until it got to the point where he practically spends every weekend here. Even though legally, my fiancé only has custody every other weekend, he always had his things at his dad's house. But my house is bigger, and my fiancé is moving in here. Unfortunately, my house only has 3 bedrooms, mine and one for each child, so he was left without his own space. When he comes over, he has to sleep in my older son's room. So in reality, he's been kind of like a visitor, you know? That's the reason I'm looking for another house. I want to give him his own space, just like my kids have theirs. Yes, I understand that my stepson isn't in the best situation right now. We were already looking to move to a new house after getting married, regardless of whether he would come to live with us or not, precisely because of this issue. But we were both planning to sell our houses to buy the new one, so it would still take several months. Now, we'll be renting a house in the next few weeks. Since we were already exploring the real estate market, we already know of a house that we like. Clarifying the bathroom example above, I never used him for free childcare. I was unfortunate in the example I gave about the bathroom, but I'll explain again what happens. We have a young child who's 5 years old. I can't expect a 5-year-old to behave in a mature, appropriate manner at all times, but I can expect the older ones, aged 10 and 12, to understand that the 5-year-old is a little child who doesn't yet grasp various situations. So, for instance, if the older two are playing video games for an hour without letting the little one join in, it's obvious they need to stop and let the little one play a bit too, otherwise, the little one will feel sad and angry, think that his siblings don't like him, and so on. I'm not asking them to play with the little one all the time, but to look at the situation from the little one's perspective so as not to hurt him. In the bathroom situation I mentioned last time, it was just me, my stepson, and my youngest son. When my youngest son is with any of the boys, he refuses to go to the bathroom with me. That day, he was practically on the verge of tears, not wanting to go with me and wanting to go with his brother. So, in my view, my stepson, upon seeing the boy almost in tears over a trivial situation, should have understood he should help to prevent him from actually crying, but he only helped after I insisted a lot. Anyway, I believe my stepson will grasp this dynamic soon, just like my older son already does. You need to adjust your expectations. You are correct. Now, to the next story. Story 2. I have had enough of my stepdaughter, so I moved back to my parents with my son. I'm also 8 weeks pregnant, and I don't know what to do. Update. Hi everyone. I don't know if this is even ethical because it's about a minor. I will keep it anonymous and hope for the best. I am at the end of my tether here, and I feel paralyzed and in desperate need of advice. I, female, 38, met my husband, male, 44, about 4 years ago. I'm 8 weeks pregnant. Only my husband and I know. I have a son, male, 8, with my BF, who passed away in a car accident before my son was born. My husband has a daughter, female, 13, my stepdaughter, from a previous marriage. My stepdaughter lives with us every other week. When we got married, my ex-wife tried everything to get full custody of my stepdaughter and failed, but it was made very clear to me by my stepdaughter, ex-wife, and husband that I am not her mother and am not allowed to participate in raising her. My stepdaughter basically ignored me and my son for weeks. It wasn't hurting anyone directly. My son learned very early not to cross my stepdaughter and kept to himself when she was around. I suspected the ex-wife behind my stepdaughter's coldness toward me and thought this must be hard for my stepdaughter with all these changes. I tried to befriend her over the years, but she wasn't having it. It got worse when my ex-wife remarried and got pregnant with twins 2 years ago. She started ignoring my stepdaughter, trying to get my husband to have her more. We happily obliged, and she basically stopped being a mother to her. It didn't help either that the new husband didn't like my stepdaughter and wasn't shy about not wanting to raise another man's daughter. I asked my husband if we could take my stepdaughter full-time and try to raise her because I saw that her mental health was deteriorating and that she needed stability. The ex-wife blatantly refused this suggestion, so we continued with the every other week arrangement. The twins were born about a year ago, and all went downhill from there. It seemed like the worse my stepdaughter had it at her mom's, the more she hated me and my son. She would throw fits a couple of times every time she was with us, break our stuff, and call me if I tried to tell her off. She said it was her house because her father bought it, and that we were just guests. She would yell at my son, and she even hit him a couple of times, telling him to keep to his room if he didn't like her treatment of him. When I told her not to put her hands on my son, she told me, "What are you going to do about it?" My son grew fearful of her, and would ask me to take him to Grandpa, my late BF's father, when she was living with us. I talked to my husband about it. I told him my stepdaughter needed professional help because she wasn't feeling well and was making us miserable when she was around. So, she started going to therapy 6 months ago. Other than that, my husband didn't know what to do either. If he tried to talk to her about being nice to us, she played innocent, told him she was just playing around, and hugged and kissed my son in front of him. If he tried to be stern, she threw a tantrum and accused him of loving my son more than her. 3 months ago, my son's grandpa passed away. This hit my son and me very hard. My son was inconsolable for many weeks and couldn't really understand what it meant that he wouldn't see Grandpa again. Grandpa was a carpenter, so was my late BF, so from a very young age my son loved hanging with him in the garage, working. Many times when he was there, he came home with something they made together, butter knives, boxes, chessboards. And for my 38th birthday last summer, I got a stool that my son designed himself, built with his grandpa, and then painted. This was the last project they had together since Grandpa passed away a few weeks later. So, the stool was priceless to us. We had it in the kitchen. My stepdaughter made a lot of negative remarks about the stool, how ugly and poorly made it was. She laughed at my son's poor taste, and he was very distraught. This was the first time, however, that my husband got very angry at her and asked her to go to her room. She was so scared of his reaction that she went without any protest. This Christmas, my stepdaughter was supposed to be with her mother on Christmas Eve. Her mother dropped her off at our house very early in the morning. Her new husband had decided he didn't want her to go with them to his parents' house, where they usually spent Christmas. My stepdaughter was on the verge of tears, standing there, listening to her mother making excuses to my husband and me. My husband hugged my stepdaughter the whole time, and I tried to fight away my tears. After her mom left, she went upstairs to her room to sleep. I also went to sleep since we don't usually wake up this early on holidays. When she saw me, she smirked and said she didn't want ugly furniture in her house. I pulled her away and told her to go to her room and tried to get the pieces of wood out of the fireplace. That was when she threw a scalding hot liquid in my face. It was hot cocoa. I yelled in pain, and my son started panicking, so I ran to him to tell him that I was fine. My stepdaughter stood there laughing. I took my son upstairs and went back to her. I grabbed her hard by her arm and started pulling, pushing, and dragging her up to her room and locked the door. My husband came home with my parents moments later. My mom took me to the emergency room, and my son insisted on coming with me. I had second-degree burns on my cheek and neck. When I went home, my husband was so mad at me for assaulting my stepdaughter by using force to get her to her room. He told me I should have had compassion, knowing how hurt she was by her mother's abandonment. I told him that I have had enough of this. I am living a nightmare, 1 or 2 weeks of my life having to walk on eggshells in my own home whenever she's around. My son is a prisoner in his own room when she's living with us, too terrified to cross a boundary of hers. I told him that I didn't know how to handle this, and that it was a mistake from the beginning that I wasn't allowed to be a parental figure in her life with authority. He disagreed and told me that she has a kind heart and needed patience. But the thing is, I don't think she does. She targeted my son's handiwork, fully aware of its sentimental value, and she targeted my face because she always hated the fact that my husband thinks I am beautiful and is open with complimenting my eyes and smile. I didn't stay there for Christmas. I took my son and parents and went to my parents' home, where I live now. My husband is in panic mode. He's been texting and calling me all the time, trying to get me to move back and work things out. My stepdaughter even texted, apologizing. He probably made her, but I don't know what to do. I love him so much, but I'm ashamed to say that I hate that girl. My son starts hyperventilating at the thought of living with her again. And what about my unborn baby? I feel sick at the thought of having only partial custody and being at the mercy of his half-sister when it's my husband's week. This thought makes me want to have an abortion. Please tell me if there's another solution to this hell I'm living. Update. Hi everyone. I hope you enjoyed the holidays. I'm overwhelmed with the support I received from you. It helped a lot. I was literally losing my mind and wasn't sure if it was wise of me to take these drastic measures. I'm sorry I didn't make an update sooner. I just didn't think I had anything to add. Plus, these last weeks have been so hard. But I came here now to tell you that I have moved on with my plans. It's just hard for me to talk about it, since it was a planned pregnancy, and both my soon-to-be ex and I were longing for him/her. It was also hard to see my soon-to-be ex broken over my decision. He thinks I have acted too fast and can't fathom how I could just throw away our life together so quickly. I think he still doesn't realize the severity of my stepdaughter's actions. He even had her with him when he visited me at my parents' house the first time. He wanted us to have a sit-down. When I saw her in the car, I immediately told him to drive back. He was shocked. However, when he saw the dark scars on my face, ones that, according to the doctor, will fade away with time, he finally seemed to grasp the reality of the situation. I can't help but blame myself, though. It's my fault that he thought this was a sudden decision. Had I been more honest and open with him, he would have known this was hurting me and my boy for months now, years, really. This blame will lie with me and me alone. I thought that by keeping my mouth shut, I would minimize the damage. How wrong I was. My stepdaughter is living with her grandparents full-time now, and I think it's going to be a permanent arrangement. Her stepdad is adamant about not having her around his children. I think this is so messed up on so many levels, but I don't know if I have a say in this. It's her parents' call, even if I think it's a grievous mistake. And honestly, I can't say that I care either. My boy is doing better. He loves living with my parents. He knows he will have to change schools, and he's scared about it, but he still thinks it's great that we moved. We started therapy. In one session, the therapist tried to explain to him how my stepdaughter was not feeling well and needed help. He got upset and told the therapist he didn't agree with her. He said, "Stepdaughter isn't the only one hurting. Many kids have bad parents. I never knew my father and lost people I loved, but still, I wasn't mean to my family." I cried for days after this. I am so sorry for what I put him through. I just want to spend the rest of my life making it up to him, my beautiful baby. With Amrin, we're back to working from home, so it really doesn't matter that I live 5 hours from work. I work in a bank, and I've talked to my boss. She will help me apply for a position at an nearer office. I think I have covered everything. If anything major happens, I will make a new update. Thank you again for the support. You helped more than you can imagine. Co-edit. We have rebuilt the stool. We couldn't make it perfect, and we had to patch it in many places and repaint it, but we love it. Some explanation from OP. I'm sorry I haven't been able to answer all your questions. I wrote my update very late and went to sleep. When I woke up, it was locked. I will try to answer some here. My soon-to-be ex and his ex got divorced because she cheated on him. Her relationship with the affair partner didn't last. The affair partner left her when they got busted. This happened way before my soon-to-be ex and I met, but the resentment came from the fact that he moved on. From what I understood, my soon-to-be ex and his ex were planning to give their relationship a second chance right before I met him, and he allegedly changed his mind. He blatantly denies this, but I've heard it from his ex and even my stepdaughter. I know I was harsh on the stepdad simply because I don't think he is a good human being. His reluctance toward my stepdaughter started way before the twins were born and even before he and my stepdaughter's mom got married. He made it clear that he would prefer if my stepdaughter didn't live with them. He even tried not to have her at their wedding. But after the incident, I don't blame him, even though I know he was happy he got a reason to get rid of her. Now, the problem is that my stepdaughter loves him and the twins. She never speaks ill of him and always praises him. When she felt hurt by them, her hatred for me increased instead. I don't know how to explain it, but I kind of understood her. My soon-to-be ex isn't an evil man. He's probably a bad parent, but I don't think he is malicious. He knew his daughter was hurting, and his solution was to spoil her. When she stayed with us, it didn't help either that my stepdaughter saw that he loved my son and treated him well. She always accused him of favoritism, and that drove him to spoil her even more to prove that she was his first priority, a vicious circle. On the morning of Christmas Eve, when my stepdaughter was dumped at our doorstep, my soon-to-be ex cried after she went to bed and felt hopeless. I think that's why he couldn't understand the severity of what she did. She had bruises from where I dragged her to her room. Getting mad would probably have been my first reaction if I didn't know the full story and if my child was bruised by an adult. I'm not trying to defend him. I'm trying to understand why he reacted the way he did. About my stepdaughter moving in with her grandparents, I think my soon-to-be ex, even though he doesn't want to admit it, is repulsed by her. It's so sickening, but I don't think he can help it. He feels terrible about the termination, and he is on sick leave now. This is so hard for me to write, but I think this is the brutal truth. I have promised myself not to get involved or utter an opinion about this matter to him, or anybody else. She's not my responsibility, and maybe it's for the best because her grandparents are decent people. Even though I don't know if more feelings of abandonment are what my stepdaughter needs, I don't think she's a psychopath. She has feelings, a lot of them, especially rage. I don't think she's faking her rage, it feels very genuine. Many accused me of being a bad mom who only reacted when I was personally assaulted. I will have to live with this guilt, and make it up to my boy for the rest of my life. These few weeks have been so dark. I keep thinking that she could have hurt my son with a hot drink instead of me, and I wouldn't have had the time to prevent it because it happened so fast. I can't stop beating myself up about it, and I probably deserve it. My only defense is that her violence escalated very quickly after the twins were born. Before that, I deemed the situation to be manageable. I was wrong, and I'm so sorry I let it go on for so long. I don't feel well. The termination was so hard on me because I loved and wanted the baby. This has nothing to do with my political views or beliefs. I don't live in the US or any other religious country. Where I live, abortion is a basic human right and not a political view. It was hard for me because I had longed for a baby. Please stop abusing me in the chat, calling me a murderer and whatnot, or at least do it here and not hide in the private chat. I'm going to live with my parents for a while now. Even after we settle the economy and separate our finances, I feel like it's good for us at the moment. My son is so happy with them, even if he misses my soon-to-be ex. He knows that if he chose to stay with my soon-to-be ex, it meant staying with my stepdaughter too, so he's trying to adjust to a life without his dad. we're getting a dog. He has always wanted one but couldn't because my stepdaughter is allergic. I hope this answered all your questions, and thank you again for the support. Relevant comments. Commenter OP mentioned soon-to-be ex feeling unwell right after mentioning pregnancy termination. My speculation would be just some negative feelings or depression about losing the prospect of losing an unborn child and correlating the cause to be his daughter, particularly the burn she caused to OP, which he got to see the scars caused by as a surprise when visiting her. I am assuming OP's injuries were bandaged up when she came home from the ER and was confronted by OP and had no idea about the severity. Seems like things went from blissful ignorance to shocking realization of the current state of things around him, some sort of a breakdown from his life going from being married with child, stepchild, plus unborn child on the way, no more marriage, stepchild has gone along with the wife, discovery that bio daughter was violent towards wife and stepson, which resulted in wife getting second-degree burns and scars on neck, dark face, and that ended up being the direct cause of termination of unborn child. Pretty much went from thinking he's got a near-perfect life to, where did everyone go? In the span of. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you. My brother stole my girlfriend and framed me. Now, 6 years later, they're all begging for forgiveness. I, 24M, feel as though the ones who were meant to love me the most have ripped my life apart. I'm still having trouble accepting that this all began 6 years ago. I had been dating Emily, 24F, since high school. We grew up with our parents, who were childhood friends, and our families were quite close. I believed that I would eventually wed her. We had acquaintances, attended the same schools, and even took family trips together. I genuinely thought we would be together forever because she was my first love. Alex, 28M, my older brother, comes next. He has always been my parents' favorite child, smart, gregarious, and successful. Before everything broke apart, I didn't think it would matter. Emily accused me of sexually assaulting her 6 years ago. I was caught off guard. Why would she say something like that when we had been together for years? It was unbelievable to me. Alex intervened and supported her, which made everything worse. He claimed to have been protecting her when he told our parents that he had witnessed me acting improperly toward her at a party. My parents immediately accepted his story. My side of the story wasn't even requested. They had complete faith in Emily and Alex. The entire community turned against me, and I was expelled from the house in a matter of days. I had considered Emily's family to be a second family, but they also severed all connections. My reputation, my family, and my girlfriend were all lost. My parents informed me that unless I received assistance for something I hadn't even done, they would not want to see me again. I had nowhere to go at the age of 18. In the end, I crashed at a friend's house, but I was devastated on an emotional level. I resorted to drunkenness and melancholy, doing everything to dull the hurt of being dumped and wrongly accused by the people I trusted most. I had a hard time moving on for years. I started going to treatment, moved to a new city, and gradually started to restore my life. But I was still troubled by the treachery. I was so afraid that others would be unfaithful to me like Emily and Alex that dating was practically impossible. I never made an effort to get in touch with my family, and they never did. They expelled me on false pretenses, and I couldn't forgive them for it. Then, everything changed around 6 months ago. Lisa, an old friend of Emily's, contacted me. She informed me she had to confess something because she could no longer bear the guilt. Lisa disclosed that while we were still together, Emily and Alex had been seeing each other behind my back. They had been in love for years. They made up the fake accusation to get me out of the picture when Emily decided to leave me for Alex. Alex was confident that my parents would believe him, and it was successful. After I got kicked out, Emily and Alex started dating. They are now married and appear to be leading a beautiful life while I was left to deal with the fallout. Lisa went to my parents after being honest with me. She wanted them to know that they had thrown away their son for a lie because she could no longer bear to know the reality. My folks were surprised. Lisa clarified how Alex had deceived Emily, and how they had both made me the victim. Soon after, my parents contacted me and begged to meet and speak. They were inconsolable, sobbing over the phone as they apologized for not trusting me. They acknowledged that their love for Emily and their faith in Alex had caused them to become blinded. Initially, I was angry. Instead of feeling satisfied that I had finally been proven right, they wanted to make things right as if nothing had happened, even if it took them 6 years to discover the truth. The worst thing, Alex and Emily are forgiven. According to my parents, family is family, and what's done is done. They have even let Emily back into their lives and still adore Alex. They now want us all to make amends, move on from the past, and pretend that I wasn't destroyed by the previous 6 years. Their most recent attempts to contact me have gone unanswered. I'm not sure if I'll ever be able to forgive them for their actions. Because Alex and Emily are family, they expect me to simply get over it, after throwing me out on false pretenses and leaving me when I most needed them. So, even after my family learned the truth, am I the fool for severing our relationship? Relevant comments. Telling them that you don't want to be a part of their life as long as they continue to have Alex and Emily in them is quite reasonable. They ought to hold Alex and Emily accountable, and disown them if they genuinely regret their actions. That makes perfect sense. Definitely not a fool. I don't think I would want them back either, given the harm done in the 6 years it took to find out. The golden child will always be preferred by parents like them. It required a bystander to come forward and expose this horrible plot 6 years after Opie lost all ties to his former life. I would really consider bringing a slander lawsuit against Opie's brother and his ex because they are all terrible people. The members of your family wish to ignore this. They ought to have invested the same amount of effort in repairing your reputation and severing their connections with Emily and Alex. Going back to this familial dynamic would only make things worse for you. Moving on with your life and avoiding further pain is the wisest course of action. I then blocked their phone numbers. Alex and Emily purchased burner phones with new numbers to call me for a few hours, but I haven't returned any of their calls. Their insistence on apologizing and reassembling the family only after everyone else has discovered what they truly did enrages me. Some may argue that I ought to have put up a stronger fight or held them accountable, but I'm done. I no longer require their approval or an apology. I have decided to permanently close this chapter. Positively, news of Emily and Alex's actions spread throughout the community. Since I was raised in a tiny town, I suppose word got around fast. My parents have been publicly humiliated, and people are now boycotting Alex's company. To get away from the city, Emily's parents and I are considering relocating to the country. I am aware of this because I constantly receive messages about how my activities are impacting others, which is, to be honest, rather crazy. Nevertheless, I am somewhat proud that they aren't getting away with it. A few others also wanted to know how I made ends meet. This occurred after I graduated from high school. With student loans, I was able to enroll in a comparatively good college because of my respectable grades. Before I landed a job in my profession, I worked at a few odd jobs. Although it's a starting salary, it's better than what I had previously. Since I was able to live with friends after college, I must admit that, in spite of my enormous student loan debt, I'm very content with my life given everything I've gone through. I also wanted to address the claims made by some that this was a hoax because of my previous posts. It is a joint account between myself and my pals. We may have come together because we have all experienced trauma and difficult family issues. However, I would like to thank everyone for their support and guidance. 6 years have passed, and it still seems unbelievable that I could have experienced any of this. I felt more confident to take the necessary action after reading your advice. Thank you. I'm hoping that this will allow me to go forward without turning around. Now to the next story. Story 2. My best friend abandoned her baby with me. Now she's back to take her for a trust fund inheritance after her mother-in-law's death. We were freshmen at State University in 2013, which is when I first met Penelope, 29F. Our first encounter occurred when she wanted to borrow my notes after missing class due to the flu. We were both majoring in computer science. Following that, we began attending lectures together and eventually found ourselves in the same study group. We had a close-knit group of friends during our first 2 years of college. 6 of us would get together every Friday to study in the campus coffee shop before going to the neighborhood pizza place for dinner. Because Penelope and I were both only children from middle-class households attempting to succeed in the computer industry, we grew particularly close. Both of us found employment in the same city after graduating in 2017. She found a job at a startup about 20 minutes away, and I worked at a software business downtown. We maintained frequent communication, getting together for lunch on Wednesdays and spending weekends with other local college pals. Penelope began dating Mike, a sales representative for her employer, around the end of 2019. I never really liked him. Even if he first appeared fine, he would frequently arrive late to group gatherings or abruptly cancel plans. Penelope, he ended their relationship by text message after roughly 6 months of dating. Penelope called me in tears 2 weeks after the separation to tell me she was expecting a child. Mike quickly blocked her number and moved to his company's office in a different state after she told him. It was very apparent that he had no interest in the infant. Penelope had my support during her pregnancy. I became her primary support system because her parents resided in Florida and could only visit periodically. I assisted her in shopping for baby goods, attended all of her doctor's appointments, and even watched YouTube videos to learn how to assemble a cot. The birth date of Emily was March 15, 2021. Due to inclement weather, Penelope's parents' travel was delayed, so I was in the birth room. I saw how difficult it was for Penelope to connect with Emily during those initial days in the hospital. Penelope was aloof despite the nurses' attempts to assist her with nursing and basic baby care. I began visiting Penelope's apartment every day after work when they returned home. I would prepare dinner, assist Emily, and frequently remain until 11 o'clock or later. I would take Emily for a little while on the weekends so Penelope could get some rest or sleep. With a crib, changing table, and more baby items than I ever imagined having, my apartment turned into a second nursery. When Emily was about 6 months old, the issues began to worsen. Penelope would phone me in the middle of the night to tell me that Emily's crying was too much for her to handle. Occasionally, when I got there, Emily would be crying in her crib, and Penelope would be sitting on the couch. Penelope began skipping work a lot and hardly ever left her apartment. Penelope was let go by her employer in January of 2022. She started skipping work without warning after using up all of her sick days. Things truly took a turn for the worst at that point. She stopped taking calls from relatives and friends. Unwashed laundry was all around her flat, and unclean dishes were piled up. At 3 o'clock in the morning on February 12, 2022, Penelope gave me a call. I could hardly understand her since she was crying so much. She claimed Emily deserved more and that she was a bad mother. She pleaded with me to let Emily stay for a few days so she could get her act together. I was concerned about both of them, so I agreed. The following morning, Penelope delivered Emily to my flat along with 3 big bags of supplies and clothing. After giving Emily a deep embrace, she hurried off, promising to call Emily shortly. At the time, Emily was 10 months old. Penelope texted every day throughout the first week to inquire about Emily. She wanted to know if Emily missed her, if she was eating well, and if she was sleeping well. Every time, I replied with pictures and updates. Her texts decreased in frequency and length throughout the second week. By the third week, when I asked her when she would return, she would only respond with a single word. A month later, she stopped answering altogether. I made every effort to get in touch with her. She had moved out. When I tried to reach her via phone, text, email, and even in person at her apartment, she hadn't contacted her parents either. Despite my worries, I had to concentrate on Emily. I hired a part-time nanny to assist during video conferences and changed my work schedule to spend more time at home. Emily fared remarkably well. She was a cheerful baby all the time, and it seemed like having a regular routine helped. At about this time, she began referring to me as Dada. I initially attempted to correct her, but my mother claimed that since I was her primary caregiver, it was only normal. I got a certified letter from a law firm 3 months after Penelope left. In the legal forms in the packet, Penelope was asking me to adopt Emily and renounce her parental rights. In a brief letter, she expressed her inability to become a mother and her belief that Emily would live a better life with me. I contacted a family lawyer right away to manage the adoption procedure. The lawyer stated that adoption was feasible because I had been Emily's primary caregiver for months and Penelope was voluntarily renouncing her rights. We had to conduct background checks, have social workers visit homes, and post notices in newspapers. Emily officially became my daughter on September 15, 2022, after a 4-month process. After that, life settled into a comfortable pattern. In order to be more accessible, I made the decision to work from home permanently 3 days a week. Emily began attending a local preschool, which she adored. Her teachers praised her for being well-adjusted and gregarious, and she made friends easily. Every month, my parents travel from Ohio to visit us. They shower Emily with gifts and attention, embracing their role as grandparents. Every time Penelope's parents call to see how Emily is doing, I send them pictures and updates. They never put any pressure on me regarding Penelope since they understand that I am now Emily's father. As a single father, dating has been fascinating. I usually scare women away right away or pique their curiosity because I'm always honest about having a daughter. Emily is my top priority, and I won't compromise on that. As a result, my 2 romances, each lasting a few months, terminated. Up until last week, everything was good. A knock on the door interrupted my work in my home office. Emily was enrolled in preschool. Penelope was standing there when I opened the door, and she didn't look at all like I remembered her. She appeared healthy, had well-groomed hair, and wore pricey clothing. She said that she had received assistance, and was now prepared to become a mother. She had been attending therapy, and was doing well as a project manager. Her goal was to regain custody and begin parenting Emily. Since she had revoked her rights and I had legally adopted Emily, I informed her that was not feasible. She broke down in tears, admitting that she had erred and that her despair had prevented her from thinking clearly at the time. She became irate and threatened to get a lawyer. When I refused to back down, she promised to provide evidence that she was forced to renounce her rights. I instructed her to get out and that my lawyer would have to handle any correspondence. I'm worried now. Emily is content, safe, and thriving in our life together. She has no memory of Penelope. I had to share this somewhere, but I've already phoned my lawyer to be ready for whatever Penelope might try. I will not allow anyone to take my kid away. Update 1. Since I last posted, a lot has transpired. Penelope sued, saying she had terminated her rights when untreated postpartum depression was plaguing her. A 15-page affidavit from her attorney described how I allegedly exploited her mental state to remove Emily from her. The text exchanges from 2021 to 2022 that were contained in the dossier showed Penelope requesting my assistance with Emily even back then. Her lawyer misrepresented these messages to suggest that I was attempting to become Emily's mom. They also claimed that I had been preparing to obtain custody all along because I had baby goods at my apartment. After Penelope reached out to our former college pals, they became interested. I stole Penelope's baby, according to some of their Facebook posts. Our study group member Tom called me and told me that I should realize that Penelope was ill when she gave up Emily. After I declined to talk about letting Penelope see Emily, Lisa, another college acquaintance, blocked me on all social media. However, not everyone took Penelope's side. In a lengthy Facebook post, my friend Mark, who had frequently assisted me with Emily, described how Penelope had utterly abandoned Emily and disregarded all of my attempts to get in touch with her. He provided screenshots of our attempts to contact her that went unanswered. Emily's preschool has been an attempted situation. The director called me last Tuesday to let me know that Penelope had been keeping an eye on Emily while they were playing outside. She claimed to be Emily's mother and had the right to see her. From the personnel, she gave them old pictures of herself with baby Emily. When they asked for identification, she refused to leave. When the school's security guard urged her to, she initially insisted that all she wanted was to see her daughter before she departed. They had to threaten to contact the police. I had to leave work early to pick up Emily after the director phoned me right away. The following day, I was at the school for 3 hours updating all of Emily's documents. I provided them with copies of the court orders proving my sole custody and the adoption documents. I made it plain that no one else could pick Emily up, but I did add my parents to the pickup list. They changed their security procedures and now verify everyone's identity, even their known parents. Penelope began delivering parcels to our home. The first one, a big box filled with new toys, clothing, and a plush pink elephant, arrived last Wednesday. She sent a lengthy letter outlining her reasons for leaving and her deep regret. She put notes on the back of each picture and included pictures of herself with Emily when she was a newborn. Over the course of the following week, 3 additional shipments came. One had children's books that contained private notes. A handcrafted photo album of Emily's first few months was in another. The final one had a tablet with videos of Penelope reading bedtime tales already loaded on it. Emily hasn't seen any of it, but I'm keeping it all as proof. Last Friday, Mrs. Chin, my next-door neighbor, called to report that someone had been parked outside our house for a number of hours. I noticed Penelope's white Honda Civic when I looked. She left before the cops arrived, even though I had contacted them. Although they filed a report, the police stated that they were powerless to take any action until she threatened us or made direct contact. I discovered a message in our mailbox 2 days ago. Penelope noted that, in order to give Emily an afternoon free, she had adjusted her work schedule. She provided a thorough plan outlining how she intended to begin with monitored visits before progressively moving on to overnight stays. I will continue to fight until I get my daughter back, she said at the end of the note. Emily has begun to ask questions that I find difficult to respond to. At school, she noticed Penelope observing her and inquired about the identity of the woman. Emily continually brings up the fact that I used to know her, even after I told her. Emily inquired yesterday if the woman would take her away. She no longer wants to attend school and has grown needy. My parents offered to let us spend some time with them in Ohio. It would be safer for them to reside in a guarded community. I thought about it, but moving would require removing Emily from her friends and school. She already has enough stress and adjustments to handle. When they learned of what was going on, Penelope's parents gave me a call. The way Penelope behaved appalled them. After leaving Emily, Penelope also stopped communicating with them. According to her mother, they searched but were unable to locate her. 6 months ago, she contacted them to inform them not to get in touch with me any longer. That was the first time they heard from her. According to my attorney, we have a compelling case. The adoption was completed correctly, including all necessary waiting periods and notices. Throughout the process, Penelope had her own attorney and willingly signed all the documents. He cautioned, though, that Penelope's attorney might attempt to drag this out in the hopes that I would consent to shared custody in order to put an end to the legal dispute. The expenses are mounting quickly. My attorney thinks that if this gets to trial, the $5,000 in legal fees I've already paid could increase significantly. Even though I'm fortunate to have savings, it's still difficult. I don't want this situation to become any more public than it currently is, but several folks recommended creating a GoFundMe. I'm recording everything for the time being, including every shipment, every school appearance, and every unwelcome contact. I placed security cameras all around our home and recorded Penelope passing by. I also started recording a thorough vlog of Emily's symptoms, including her queries, behavioral changes, and nightmares. Observing Emily's fear and confusion is the most difficult aspect. Every time someone knocked, she used to dash to the door. She is now hiding in her room. She constantly asks me to swear that I won't abandon her the way her last mother did. I had no idea that she was aware that Penelope was her other mother. She must have heard something in school, I suppose. I want this to stop, yet I refuse to comply with Penelope's demands. Emily is my daughter, and she has known me for the majority of her life as her only father. If someone decides they want to have children right away, I won't allow them to ruin her life. Update 2. Penelope's unexpected interest in Emily can be explained by something significant I learned about her. I received a Facebook message from Rachel, a nurse who used to work with Penelope at her previous hospital employment. She informed me that Penelope is now married to a wealthy Boston businessman and had another child 6 months ago. I received screenshots of Penelope's picture-perfect life from Rachel's private social media sites. She publishes pictures of her new baby boy, writes about charitable activities, and resides in a big house in a wealthy suburb. She discusses how parenthood transformed her life and the pleasures of being a first-time mother in each post. As Penelope's supervisor, Rachel had access to Penelope's old work emails, which contained the most crucial information. Penelope talked about her mother-in-law's final illness and a family trust fund that would be given to all of her grandkids upon her passing. In these emails from 8 months ago, my lawyer did additional research and discovered more information. Last year, Penelope married Robert Anderson in Massachusetts. His family operates a series of upscale auto dealerships. Robert and his whole family were informed by Penelope that she had never been married or had children. For more than a year, she has been sharing on social media about her first experiences with parenthood and her new daughter. We also learned that precisely 1 week after Robert's mother passed away, Penelope began her custody battle. Penelope's mother-in-law left a multi-million-dollar trust fund designated only for her biological grandkids. Each grandchild receives an equal share at turning 25 in accordance with the conditions of the trust. Things began to make sense when the time frame was reviewed. 2 weeks before her mother-in-law's passing, Penelope started passing our house on her way home. Only a few days after the death, the custody lawsuit was filed. She wants Emily to inherit everything, but she isn't attempting to get Emily back because she wants to become a mother. Rachel sent us Penelope's text chats with her friend Kate, which contained the most unsettling evidence. Penelope noted that she had to bring Emily back before the specifics of the trust money were decided. She discussed how she could explain Emily's existence to Robert by claiming that she had previously been too embarrassed to do so. She even intended to claim that, while she was starting her career, she had temporarily placed Emily in my care. My attorney presented all of this evidence to Penelope's attorney. Then, with both attorneys present, Penelope asked for a private meeting. She revealed everything during the meeting. She claimed that, although she felt bad about parting with Emily, she hadn't considered doing so until she found out about the trust fund. She believed she could use the inheritance money to make up for her past transgressions and provide Emily with a better life. Finding out that Penelope had hired a private investigator to follow us 3 months prior, long before she arrived at our door, was what really infuriated me. The PI collected data about our daily schedule and took pictures of Emily at school. Penelope knew just when to visit our home and when to get Emily up from school because of this. Emily is feeling the effects of the situation. She now pulls her blanket into my room every night instead of sleeping in her own room. I discovered her attempting to fit her favorite toys into her school backpack last week. She told me that she wanted to be prepared in case she had to go, like her old mom did. When I questioned why, at school, she overheard children discussing how the woman observing them was someone's mother who had left. I concluded that Emily needed expert assistance to handle this circumstance. I discovered a child psychologist who focuses on custody and adoption matters. So far, we've had 2 sessions. According to the psychologist, Emily is exhibiting symptoms of anxiousness, but she believes that with steady support and stability, she will be all right. Through all of this, Penelope's parents have been unexpectedly supportive. All of Penelope's emails and communications throughout the years, including ones in which she expressly stated that she would never want to see Emily again, were forwarded to me. They also gave a statement explaining how, after leaving Emily, Penelope stopped communicating with them and refused their assistance. Next month is the scheduled court date. With all of the fresh information on Penelope's actual intentions, my lawyer is really optimistic about our case. In order to prevent Penelope from seeing Emily or me, he is submitting a motion for a permanent restraining order. My parents helped me pay for the more than $112,000 in legal bills I've incurred over the past month. They stated that, rather than risk losing their granddaughter, they would choose to spend their retirement funds now. I don't know if I could have fought this war alone, therefore, I'm thankful for their support. Update 3. Last Monday, the legal case came to a close. When all of the court records and evidence were provided to Robert anonymously, Penelope's scheme fell apart. He attended the last hearing and discovered the whole truth about Penelope's history and current behavior. The judge examined all of the evidence for 4 hours. The text messages revealing Penelope's scheme to claim the trust fund funds piqued her curiosity the most. In addition, Penelope's hired private investigator testified that she had paid him to follow us months before she even tried to get in touch with Emily. During his testimony, Robert described how Penelope had deceived him and his family for 2 years. He disclosed that, on the grounds that she wants to adopt underprivileged children in the future, Penelope had pushed him to amend the terms of his mother's trust fund to include adopted children. Penelope began her scheme to reclaim custody of Emily after his mother refused. The judge's decision was unambiguous. She gave me a permanent restraining order and dismissed Penelope's custody petition. Penelope cannot approach Emily, me, our house, or Emily's school within a 1,000 feet. Additionally, she is prohibited from mailing messages or packages, even via intermediaries. Any infraction will result in an arrest right away. Robert informed me following the hearing that he had already sought full custody of their son and filed for divorce. He discovered proof that Penelope had been financing her custody dispute with funds and resources from his business. She had paid the private investigator and attorneys more than $330,000 of their combined savings. When her manager discovered that Penelope had been using company time and computers to monitor us and plot her custody battle, she lost her job at the investment firm where she was employed. Her parents decided to take her in only after she began intense therapy, so she returned to Florida to live with them, about 30 minutes away from our previous home. We moved to a new one. Although it's in a different school district, my office is really closer to it. Last month, Emily began attending her new school. The principal is fully aware of our predicament, and the school has outstanding security precautions. In her class, Emily has already met 3 new pals. I was able to explain everything to Emily in an age-appropriate manner with the assistance of the child psychologist. She picked me to be her father when we informed her that Penelope, her original mother, was unable to care for her. I was finally able to reassure Emily that no one would ever take her away. When she questioned whether Penelope would take her away, although Emily still occasionally sleeps in my room, the nightmares have largely ended. Her new teacher reports that she is adjusting well and that she is once again being her happy self at school. To make her feel more at ease in the new home, she sketched a portrait of our family last week, which only included her, me, and our acquired pooch, Max. Emily continues to get birthday and Christmas gifts from Penelope's parents. They just ever email me to see how she's doing and respect our boundaries. They have always been supportive of my adoption of Emily, so I send them pictures and updates every few months. I had to pay almost $40,000 in legal expenses for the entire thing, but it was well worth it to keep Emily safe. Last month, I received a promotion from my company, which aids in the financial recuperation. More significantly, we may now enjoy our lives without worrying about what others are doing. We are grateful to everyone who helped us get through this. No one can ever again question that Emily is my daughter in any meaningful manner. We're together, content, and secure. That is all that is important. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.